Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. Good to be with you today. I hope you're having a good week. Time's just flying on by as it usually does. And this morning I'd like to share a thought with you first. But before I do that, I want to share a story. You've probably heard this before, or maybe you have. There was this carpenter who was building a house for this guy. He built a lot of things for him. And as he's building the house, he realizes he could cut some corners and give himself some more money, and the owner would never really know about it. So he cut a few corners on the foundation, saved some money, cut a few corners on some of the wood purchases, and saved some money. Finally got around to buying a little bit less than the most expensive cabinets and saved himself a little bit of money. And did this throughout the whole house. And then when he was finally finished, he went to the owner and he said, "Well, I'm all done." The owner says, "Well, did you do it to the best of your abilities?" He said, "I think I did." He said, "Well, good." And he took the keys and he gave them back to the builder. And he said, "Actually, all along, I intended this to be your house because you've done so much for me. So I hope you really enjoy the place." Well, I can only imagine what the builder thought. Probably he was embarrassed. Probably he was worried. Probably all kinds of probably, I don't know. But the point was that he tried to cut corners to help himself, and eventually he just really ended up hurting himself. Now, perhaps you've heard it said that people don't take a lot of pride in their work anymore. I don't know if that's really true. I mean, sure, there's some people who don't take much pride in their work, but you know what? There probably always have been. In fact, I'm sure there must be, or this passage I'm going to share doesn't have any sense to it. So let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 31. Paul writes these words: "So, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." Whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. See, we're not really working for ourselves. Oh, it might seem like it. We're not living for ourselves. We don't get the ultimate decision making power in our lives. Now, let me say that again in a little different way. You're not in charge, somebody else is. Now, you may think you're in charge, and that's okay. Doesn't mean it's true. And Paul is saying here to the Corinthians who've been arguing about whether they should eat this or not eat this, whether they should follow this law or not follow that law. And they're confused. I mean, this thing's written, oh, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years after Jesus died, somewhere in that time frame. They don't have the advantage that you and I have, which is 2,000 years of history of the church. They're just trying to sort things out. They're trying to make some sense out of things. And so Paul says, it doesn't matter. But what matters is, whatever you do it for the glory of God. Now, so oftentimes today we do things for the applause. Think of all the entertainers. Think of the politicians. If they didn't have their crowds out there cheering them on, you think most of them would still be there? I mean, if they didn't get their 60 seconds or 30 seconds in the limelight saying whatever they want to say, you think they'd be trying to do that? Nah, I don't. They need people to respond to them favorably. Read lots of stories of entertainers who were on drugs and alcohol and a mess because once the applause stopped, they felt like they were nothing. Well, in our lives, when we don't accomplish what it is we set out to do, then we may feel like our lives have been worthless. We may put on a good face and act like it doesn't bother us, but I think many times it does because we're working for the wrong person. Our goals are oriented in the wrong direction. See, when you do things to promote you or to make you feel better, you've missed the whole point. Life is here in order to be in relationship to God. The God who, okay, here we go. Pay attention. It's real subtle. The God who knows a whole lot more than you do. Yeah, yeah, he's in charge, not me. Oh, I get to decide, like now that I'm going to sit down and do this devotional. But if somebody had called and needed me to come out and God had touched me on the shoulder and said, no, I want you to go do this and said, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be doing something else. In fact, when I get done with here, I got several something else's to do because I'm not setting the agenda. Now, it is true I can set my schedule probably with more flexibility than many of you can, but I still don't get to set the agenda, and neither do you. Our lives are not for ourselves. Now, don't misunderstand. That doesn't mean that we can't have fun and we can't do things that are enjoyable. Doesn't mean we have to live in misery. Doesn't mean we have to never take any time off or any time away. Doesn't mean any of that stuff. But what it does mean is that God made us for a reason. He made you and me. And whatever that reason is, that's what God wants out of us. So whenever we do something, whether it's little or big, we should do it for God's glory. Let Him get the credit. Let Him be the one that people go, wow, that's amazing, instead of trying to pat ourselves on the back. It's really not that difficult. All we have to do, now, here it is, folks, I'll lay it out to you. All we have to do is put God first. The rest will take care of itself. And this passage by Paul, let me read it one more time as he wrote it. So, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Well, I hope today your life brings honor to Him. And if you didn't quite make it today, well, maybe you can make it tomorrow. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you sharing your time. If you have a need or a concern that we might be able to help you with, please let us know. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.